Okay, good evening, everyone, and it's great to welcome you once again to this edition of the ASF webinar, where today we're going to be exploring a very interesting topic, which is exploring opportunities for careers outside the academia. Excuse me. And today we have with us two highly distinguished guests who will be speaking to this from their own personal experience as well as reflecting over their experience over the years. And so we're with us Dr. Adetayo Omoni-Adeyemo, who is a research and evidence advisor for the Health and Nutrition Global Theme within the program Quality and Impact Team at Save the Children. I think we probably all know Save the Children is a very well-known charity. She's based in Washington, D.C. She holds a first degree from the Nigeria Premier University of Ibadan, and then, went to undertake a postgraduate degree first in Canada, and then, John Hopkins University for a PH.D. in international health. So we are very happy to have you here, Dr. Omoni-Adeyemo. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. I'm looking forward to a very engaging discussion.
Thank you very much indeed. Dr. Omoni-Adeyemo is also Tayo for short, so you might, see me, calling her Tayo is the same, so it's not a different person, it's like one and the same person. So thank you once again and welcome. Please, can you please mute those who are coming in and thank you. And we also have with us today another highly distinguished guest, and that is Dr. Sunny Leonard, who is a program manager with United Nations Environment Program. She is currently a program management officer at the Secretariat of the Scientific and Technical Advisory Panel, otherwise known as STAP, of the Global Environment Facility, or GEF, at the United Nations Environment Program Office in Washington, D.C. He holds his first degree from the Nigerian Federal University of Technology, Akure. From there, he went on to the University of Nottingham for his master's degree in environmental engineering, and then to University College London, where he bagged his PhD in environmental engineering. And he held a postdoc, so which is interesting, before he took up his position at the United Nations Environment Program, first as the special assistant to the chief scientist in the headquarters in Nairobi, Kenya, and then subsequently had a stint in Paris, and now has been in Washington, D.C. for the last few years. So you are welcome once again, Dr. Leonard. We're happy to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Again, Dr. Leonard is Sunny or Sunday for short, so you might see me, again, referring to one and the same person. Okay, without taking too much time, we are right on course, and there'll be opportunity for those for participants to, to ask questions later on in the session. So I think we will start first then with Tayo for our presentation, and then we go straight immediately after then to Sunny for his talk, and then I will then ask them a few questions to follow up on the issues that have come up in their presentations and other relevant issues related to the team. And then we then give you opportunity for participants on the floor to contribute to the discussion as well. So thank you once again. Now over to you, Tayo.
All right, thank you. I'm just going to give a brief overview of my experience, my journey into the PhD program, and then into my post-PhD career, very briefly, and more importantly, offer my thoughts on exploring and preparing for job opportunities outside of academia. So I would say that I will start off by saying that my desire to pursue a PhD actually started during my undergraduate studies. During my third year, I took 2 courses, public health nutrition and community nutrition, that really sparked my interest and helped shape my career, choices and interests and all of that. So I knew I wanted to have a career in international public health, primarily practicing in the field, but I did not necessarily want a career in academia as such, the traditional career of, being a university professor and all of that. And I also knew that I wanted to be an expert in my field. So that was really what drove my desire to pursue a PhD primarily. It was that desire to have an intellectually fulfilling experience and, to prepare for a career in the field as a global health expert. So those desires helped shape my my choices. And prior to pursuing postgraduate studies, I decided to work in a consulting firm. I gained some consulting experience. I worked with Accenture for about 3 years before I now went to pursue my master's and then later on my PhD. So in terms of preparing for a post-PhD career during my PhD, because I went into the program already knowing that I wasn't going into academia, because it's typically, a lot of people assume that once you are pursuing a PhD program, your default career option is to be a teacher or a professor or a core researcher and all of that. But because I already knew that wasn't necessarily my primary interest, it helped shape the choice of what my doctoral thesis was about. So I focused on a research topic that took me into the field for public health practice. And that experience itself has been very valuable in my post-PhD career. So during my field work, I also had the opportunity to be a technical advisor for community nutrition programs. And so in the process of acquiring the degree, I was also gaining valuable experience, which has been very helpful in my post-PhD career. So, in a nutshell, I would say that I have been blessed to have a fulfilling career post-PhD in my chosen field of interest. I enjoy my work. Post-PhD, I have worked with JPIGO, I have worked with APT Associates. Currently, I work with Save the Children. You all are, very familiar with what Save the Children does. It's an international NGO that champions the rights of children to survival, to education and protection around the world. And the organization I work for, we deliver innovative international development programs in over 100 countries around the world. And currently in my role as research and evidence advisor, I lead the global results reporting for the health and nutrition thematic area for the organization. And I also forward and support the research, evidence, and learning priorities of the organization. So I enjoy my work. I think that it is exciting, much more exciting than a career in academia. The likes of Dr. Kolade will likely dispute that, but I think it's much more exciting being out there on the field, getting your hands dirty, and making huge impacts in the lives of children all around the world. So let me offer some thoughts on the subject of discussion. So in terms of exploring non-academic careers as a PhD graduate, I think the most important thing is, first of all, to even open up your mind, right, to the possibilities of a career outside of academia. There are so many opportunities out there for PhD graduates, and you just need to open up your mind to those possibilities. Interestingly, the proportion of PhD holders that find careers in academia has actually declined in every field over a 20-year period. So there was a study that I found that compared the proportion of PhD graduates in academia from 1997 to 2007, and by 2017, and the proportion of those with careers in academia actually ranged from just 16% to 33%, depending on your field of study. So, more and more, there are more PhD graduates pursuing and exploring careers outside of the four walls of the university environment. I would say that it is also important to realize that as a result of doing the PhD, you acquire some skills that are very important and transferable outside the academic environment. For example, as a PhD graduate, you are trained to primarily to be a researcher. And those research and analytical skills that you acquire are very valuable outside of academia. There's a huge demand for them out there. That ability to, develop a research question, think through the best approach to answer that question, collect your data, develop a data analysis plan, analyze the data, synthesize findings, communicate findings. All that entire process involves, the ability to think critically, which is very, very important to, that you can transfer outside academia. Other skills that PhD graduates acquire, as a result of going through that program, you develop problem-solving skills. I already talked about critical thinking skills. You develop creativity and innovation skills. From advancing knowledge in your chosen field, or whether you're addressing a knowledge gap in your chosen field, you are coming up with innovative and creative ideas that are very important, that are transferable outside the academic environment. Also, you're developing project management and organizational skills as a result of designing and executing your research, the ability to work independently or even or as well as in a team, very important skills that are transferable. Also, leadership and mentorship skills that you develop either as a result of being a TA, you're mentoring students, you're advising students, you're even mentoring your peers in some instances, are very valuable skills that you pick up in the course of the program. And not to talk about communication skills, oral and written communication. Think about all those papers you have written, abstracts, conference presentations, the list is endless, even your publications in peer-reviewed journals. Those are all important communication skills that you can bring to bear in a non-academic environment. So where can you take those skills? There's so many places that you can transfer your skills to. You can explore careers within the government, doing public policy, public administration. You can explore career opportunities with non-governmental organizations, like the kind of organization where I work. Consulting firms also attract a lot of PhD graduates, and as well as industrial corporations, Fortune 500 companies. The list is endless. Or you can even start your own business. You really need to think out of the box and think critically about exactly which direction you want to take your career. The important thing to remember is there is no limit to what you can do with your PhD degree. So let me wrap up by offering some thoughts on the things that you can do to position yourself for a non-academic career, even as you're going through your program right now. I would encourage you to engage in career development activities during your program by volunteering. There are so many places where you can volunteer, and I can put in the chat box some of the resources I have that you can explore afterwards. Volunteering is an easy way to gain experience. You don't get paid for it, but you're exposed to a lot of things that you would not have otherwise been exposed to if you were just, not putting yourself out there in terms of volunteering. I would also encourage to explore internships and fellowships in your chosen field, in your chosen industry. Focus on acquiring and honing those skills that are transferable outside the academic environment. And more importantly, how you can translate theory rather into practice. Also, networking is very important. Put yourself out there. Attend networking events in your industry, conferences, career fairs. You can read industry papers so that you can stay on top of cutting edge information in your chosen field. And finally, I think it is important to find a mentor. Mentoring, somebody who can mentor you through your career path. You can get this either through your alumni network or through your advisor, or even through attending a webinar that you're attending right now. So I will stop there for now and keep the rest of what I have to say for the panel discussion afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed for that, excellent and succinct presentation. You've touched on quite a lot of interesting stuff that I will be picking up shortly, during the discussion. So thank you once again. That is really, really very helpful. Okay, so we now go over to Dr. Leonard, who will speak next. Yeah, you can please unmute yourself. Please unmute yourself. Okay. Sorry. Please. Okay, yeah, you're on now. No, sorry, I think a bit of technical problems there. You are still muted, Sunny. Okay.
Yep, you're unmuted now. Yep.
That's good. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak on this very interesting topic. And I think Tayo has covered a significant part of the issues to address on this topic. So I will just attempt to add more to what she has said. A little bit of introduction from my end. Shion has already talked a bit about my academic progression up to this point. So just some information about my work. I currently work at the United Nations Environment Program. I've been with the United Nations since 2011, January 2011, and it's been quite an interesting career move. And before joining the United Nations, my interest was to work in the academy for some time, but after my PhD, which was intense in terms of working in the lab, so my PhD is in environmental engineering and it's basically full-time lab work, you get to a point that you start getting tired of the whole working in the lab and so on. And I was also keen to work in the industry my specific area of interest was in oil and gas, because my PhD was focused mainly on treatment of waste from petroleum industry. Shion knew a lot of history about my PhD because we were together for some time. And when I started then, my supervisor wanted me to work on metals and so on. And I just told her that we don't do metals in Nigeria, we do oil and gas in Nigeria. So whatever you are thinking of, it has to end up with oil and gas. So we're able to design my PhD to focus on waste from petroleum industry. And it was a good experience. And so I've always had that interest. Immediately towards the end of my PhD, my goal was to work in oil and gas. But unfortunately, we were in those set of people that graduated in 2008, 2009, 2010 during the global depression. I had well, so many things could happen. So I was interviewed by Shell. I was given an offer in Aberdeen, and then as the Nigerian factor will be, I was supposed to be posted to Nigeria, and I didn't receive offer from Nigeria till tomorrow. But that's a story for another day. And then most of the other oil and gas company that shortlisted me for interviews, they ended up saying because of the global depression that they are closing on those job position. And then I didn't have a choice than to push for the academia all over again. And so I started applying for postdoc position. So I did a postdoc. I finished my PhD in 2010, and I did a postdoc for 1 year at the University of Greenwich, working on similar topics on waste, but now focusing on metal industry. And I was actually trying to do something innovative. I was trying to create artificial soil from waste materials. And but the truth is, I was really, really tired. So I was basically looking for something to get out of the lab, and I started applying for positions. So that's some history about my career progression. And it is in that process that I started seeing position. I was also applying for graduate position. I applied for positions in industry because I'm doing engineering. I have a bit of chemical and waste knowledge. So industry, organizations that are doing research, working with industry, I applied to do different ones. Well, to cut the long story short, I ended up with the United Nations, which I'm very grateful for. In going into my presentation, I will say that two disclaimers. One, because I did a science and engineering PhD, most of my presentation will come mainly from the perspective of the science, life sciences, and so on. So apologies for that, but I believe that the information will still be useful, even for those who are not in the sciences. And then my perspective is also going to be mainly from the Western world, the UK, where I studied, US, where I presently live. I think it's also going to be relevant to Canada. But I believe that the information will be useful across all geographical regions. Although I know that the culture and some other things will affect the outcomes, especially in African countries, the way we actually look at PhDs and so on. So a quick, let's say we know we finished our PhD. We're actually not, we are not really PhD graduates. We're actually survivors, if you know what I mean, because yeah, I'm sure everyone, either you're a postdoc or you have finished a PhD or you're already a professor, knows that there were times where it was really, really tough. And then after your PhD, I remember something I said, what I posted on Facebook after I submitted my thesis. I said, I've finally gotten my permanent head damage after all the troubles of PhD. It was really crazy. And then you end up maybe doing a postdoc, and then from postdoc, you do other postdoc, especially when it comes to the US and most other places. And why is this happening is because you don't, it's difficult to get academic position. And then you start asking the question, how long will I be a postdoc? So fortunately for me, I only had to do one of the postdoc before being able to escape. But for many people, that's not the case. And that's what we want to explore. Why is this the case? But before I go into that, I want to just give some information. And Tayo already highlighted some of them, but I think it's good that we have them in graphical form. So this is a publication in the Atlantic. And basically, we're looking at science PhDs. And one of the things they found is that 60% of all PhDs end up unemployed or are in low-paying postdoc position. And I think for those of us that are in the UK, you might not understand the meaning of low-paying postdoc position, because I did a postdoc for 1 year in the UK, and I got an offer of a postdoc in Canada before doing a postdoc in the UK. And you soon come to realize that the postdocs are not paid good money, good salary in countries like the US and in Canada. Basically, we're just being used to do a lot of work. So this is for the first slide is for sciences, but the case is also not different for other field. The mystery of paying low salaries to PhD also, or even not getting the job in the first place, cut across all fields. You see that 80% of life sciences end up completely unemployed. And when you look at the graph, you actually realize that the number of people getting full-time job are declining. And the numbers of people not getting anything or getting postdoc is actually increasing. And I added this slide that shows the salary. I know our goal is not the salary. So most of the time we want to make impact and so on, but it's also part of the things that make us want to work. And I'm sure that's one of the reasons why Tayo says she's happy with her job, because you get a better offer with work outside of the industry. I added this slide, and I think it alludes to the point that Tayo made. So this is a review of the number of PhDs graduates that get stuck in either part-time job or postdoc position or non-faculty position. And we see that this number, this is a research that was conducted by the Royal Society, and it shows that only 0.5% of PhDs will ever become full-time professors. Only 0.5%. That is not a good number at all. At the same time, we have so many people now stuck in postdoc position, part-time position, or non-faculty position, and the number is increasing for the past 30 years. That number is increasing. Now, I guess the situation could be different for Africa. This is an African forum, so the situation might be different for Africa, because most of the time, people that do PhD in Africa are already in the academy, and it's one of their criteria for growing. So the situation might be different, but of course, many of us are trying to acquire knowledge here, even if we intend going back to Africa. So this kind of information is very, very useful. And of course, what's the outcome of this? We end up with a lot of unhappy postdocs. This is a survey at the University of Texas in Austin. These are two publications that shows that postdocs, or most people after graduation, have very low life satisfaction. Only 13% of postdocs felt they are flourishing. They have low interest in the field. Their interest continue to decline. 20% have declined in their interest in the work they are doing as they progress in their work. And many of them will not recommend to others to do a postdoc, which is not something that is good when we think that, if we think that we need to be producing more people to be at the forefront of knowledge. So it shows that the system is not really working for people as they acquire more knowledge. Now, this is not to discourage us from doing PhD. I'm just trying to put out the data that's available out there, and that should make us smarter in the way we approach things. This is just a comic on postdocs as the least appreciated people in the academic arena, because the postdocs are used to do all the work, but they are not appreciated. I think that's one of the reasons why they started creating postdoc appreciation week. But the truth is that they're only appreciated for that 1 week, and then they go back to being less appreciated for the rest of the year. So, but the point is this: why is it difficult for PhDs to get or to move out of the academic to go into maybe industry? I put this slide here to say that it is all in our head, and I think Tayo alluded to that too. It's all in our head because by default, if I still remember during my undergraduate, I knew the next thing I'm going to do after the national service in Nigeria is to go do a master's. And while I was doing my master's, the first semester at the University of Nottingham, I already submitted application, and at the end of December, I started my master's in September. By December, I already have a PhD admission, and I was looking forward to getting funding. And when you talk to people, they already put you in a corner and tell you, you are going to be a professor. You are going to be in the academics. And I think that's one of the challenges. So that thing gets into most of our head, and we don't have a different outlook. So it's always difficult to move out of a general belief unless the necessary information to change our outlook or paradigm is presented. And that's what we want to do in the next few slides. Although I will not say this is exhaustive, there is a lot of materials out there, but I will just try to pick up on some of the useful information. So why is it difficult? I think the first thing is this: we are looking at the wrong places. Most PhDs, if they want to apply for job outside of the academy, they are looking for jobs that is directly related to their PhD. They are looking for positions that are related to the topic of area or the topic area of your PhD. That is the wrong move. That's one of the right move, but it's also the wrong move because you, as Tayo alluded, you have several skills that you've already acquired that can be applied in different industries. The second thing is that what priorities are we making? How are we prioritizing? For you, you're in the third year or the final year of your PhD. What are you prioritizing? Most people will tell you they are busy writing the thesis or they are trying to get some publications out there. But when you finish and you submit your thesis, what next? The right thing to be doing is that you are busy trying to get a high quality publication, a high quality thesis out, but you're also thinking of the future, what next, and applying, doing all the necessary things that will help you to get into the future that you desire. So that's the issue of setting your priority right. The next mistake is this, is that, and I don't blame many of us because at least when we look at the society and the community, we are one of the highest custodian of knowledge. And the next thing is that we feel entitled. We think we have the right to get anything in the industry. So that sense of entitlement makes you feel I don't need to go do the extra work. But unfortunately, that attitude will not work because you still need to do the extra work before you can get a position outside of the academy. And then the last point why it's difficult is that, do you recognize the skills that you have? Most PhDs don't recognize or they don't know how to present to recruiters the skills and knowledge that they've acquired, the experience that they've acquired. So I will make one point about when I applied to the United Nations. So I told you, I finished my PhD, immediately after my PhD, I applied to the United Nations. So if I add up everything in terms of experience, I have exactly 5 to 6 years work experience. 5 to 6 years work experience. And when I say 5 to 6 years work experience, I mean, I'm counting my PhD as a work experience. Now, and the job I applied to as the United Nations mostly don't take fresh people. It's only experienced guys that they take. So the job I applied to needed a 5 years work experience. So when I added my master's degree period, my PhD period, which I did in 4 years, and my 1 year work experience as a postdoc, it added up to 6 years. And that's what I counted as my PhD. The mistake, that is because I realized that my experience as a PhD is transferable skills that can be presented to recruiters. Most PhDs will think their work experience starts after their PhD. Once you don't understand that, you start selling yourself short. So it is important for you as a PhD to understand all the skills, all the transferable skills that you've acquired and present that. And then when you're also presenting it, most of the time PhDs end up writing these long CVs that has all the publications and so on. I'm sorry, nobody's really interested in those. If you want to apply to McKinsey, for example, I've done interviews with McKinsey before. They just need a 2-page CV. So in any CV that I have, for example, even the World Bank, you just need a 2-page CV. So any CV that I have, you always see the numbers of publication on maybe 25 to 30 publications in this and this and this field. That's enough. If they are interested in knowing your publication, just make sure that you have an online presence, maybe Google Scholar and so on. Your name will be put into Google and they will see what you've done. Nobody wants to see that long list. So PhDs need to realize those things and make sure that you ask yourself this question: who is the first person at a company to read your resume? Is it likely to be another PhD? No, the first person that will read your CV in the company is the HR. I can guarantee you that the HR person doesn't have a PhD. And what next when they look at your CV, like, oh, this is another PhD, and you are showing them publication, you just push it aside, like, I have other things to do. So you need to be able to impress the first person that looks at your CV. So what are the skills that you need to show? And I'm going to run through this very fast because Tayo has mentioned many of them. What are the transferable skills that a PhD already has that can be presented? I put this one first, project management, because for me, it's very important because that is basically one of the things I believe qualified me for the job I'm doing in the United Nations. Is the ability, I'm a program manager. Most staff in the UN system manage programs or manage projects. So that's what I do. And if I've not shown this well in my CV, there is no how I would have been recruited. So, but all PhDs are project manager. You managed a project for 3 years. The only thing is that you are not doing all the skills of PMI and so on that you get from project management, but you did everything that project managers do. So what do you need to present yourself as a project manager? Project managers work across all fields. So that shows you the range of opportunities you have before you as a PhD. So project management is one of the transferable skills that you've acquired. Research, Tayo alluded to that. You've done a lot of research. In doing research, you interpreted data, you interpreted different type of information. These are skills that many organizations are looking for. They want you to be able to help them interpret data and interpret the information that has to do with their organization. So for example, as someone with a lot of analytical skills to interpret data, to mine data, you have the ability to work in a market research organization, you have the ability to work in a venture capitalist and so on. You have the ability to work in investment banking. So those skills, your interpretation skills, you need to look at them. Your critical thinking skills, you acquire so much of that through your PhD, you should be able to present them. Ability to make decisions and solve.
We always thought this was going to be a bit of a risk, but we are fine now. Sorry, Sunny.
Yeah, good. So, well, all the skills are listed there, and I just added this slide to show you wrote 50,000 theses, so you have ability to present and organize information. You worked with 3 different supervisors. Some of them were not good, so you know how to negotiate. So those are skills that you've already acquired. You conducted interviews during your research, which means you have diplomatic skills and so on. You worked as part of a team, you published papers. All those things are skills that you want to present to employers as a PhD. And here I highlighted some of the examples of the advantages you have as a PhD. One, you know how to find answers. You don't fear failures, you learn from it. You know how to deal with negative bosses. I'm sure many of us have those experiences. You are comfortable with uncertainty. You know how to create information and not just to regurgitate information. You thrive on both competition and collaboration, and you are qualified for any industry position. Okay, not every, but almost any industry, you are qualified for that, to work there. So the next few slides, I highlighted some examples of areas that you can look at as a PhD. As I said initially, most of this example is more for, applies to technical PhDs, maybe in sciences, life sciences, and so on. But I believe they are also relevant to other areas. So the first one, and I put this first because that's what I'm doing, is science policy. You work as a scientist, or you've done some research that are relevant to policy. This job means that you stand as a bridge between the policymakers and the science that is out there. That's what I do. Basically, I advise the Global Environment Facility on climate change and chemicals and waste issues. And I collaborate with scientists, with experts across the world, bring them together. We work on their latest knowledge, latest science, and we put that into reports that is concise and understandable for policymakers. And in doing this, the bridge that what I do in between is I know that all the academic journals, no politician is going to understand them. So it's to translate this in languages that are understandable. That's one thing a PhD can do very well. So that's one area that you can look at. And for this, you want to get a job in government agencies, international organizations, government departments, and so on. Management consulting, and Tayo mentioned it. We are talking of McKinsey, Accenture, and all these big companies that consult for nations, for companies, and so on. A PhD has that skills because what does management consulting do? They work together to create solutions to problems that is facing an organization or a country. So you have all those skills working in teams and so on. One important information I will give concerning management consulting, because one of the mistakes PhDs make is that we are always looking for the big companies, the McKinseys, the Dalbard, and so on. But try starting with the small companies. You can get into those small companies, and that gives you the opportunity to be able to get into bigger companies. It's also the same with organizations. Most of the time I get inquiries from friends, from young PhDs, and say, I want to get a job in the United Nations. People like me are more or less like outliers that were able to get jobs directly from PhD most of the time, and because I was able to fine-tune my CV and so on. In fact, at a point, my wife had to push me to submit the application because I said, I worked in the lab, I don't have anything to put, and I had to work and twist my CV and translate everything I did to look like policy relevant information. Unfortunately, when I was being recruited, the person that was recruiting me was also an environmental engineer. So he felt this guy can think alike. If he's able to twist his CV to look like this, then I want this guy around. And that's one of the things that gave me in way. So, but if you try, like if you want to work in the World Bank, United Nations, start thinking of small organizations that are working on international development. Acquire experiences from there. That helps you to be able to get into the big organizations and so on. The other area is business development manager. So in business development, you are developing business opportunities, managing existing products. You want to look at research organizations, get information about it, about product, and provide information to your organization on how they can improve it. You have all those skills as a PhD to be able to do those things. I've talked about project management, so I will run through that. I know I'm taking more time than is allocated to me. Technical sales specialist is another area you could look into. If you already have the skills about the technical product, then you can be a salesperson, especially if you are the type that is very skilled, outgoing, and willing to talk to many people. Then you can be a sales specialist. Operation research, research analyst, business intelligence analyst, and so on. So there are many areas where a PhD can easily fit in. I'm happy to share this slide with everyone if we want to go deep dive into these positions again. So if you want to exit the academic, how do you prepare to exit the academy? When to start? You want to start immediately. Once you realize that you want to go out, then you want to start immediately. Don't wait until you finish. I've made points about that initially. So don't wait until you finish. You want to do it now. Then what to do? Recognize your skills. That's the first thing. You need to recognize all the skills that you have. Sit down. This is not something you do it on the fly. You sit down, analyze your skills, analyze every skill that you've acquired from your PhD and put it down in a way, and then for each job you want to apply for, fit your skills to those jobs. Identify the industry of your interest, research the market, start directing your research towards your interest. Most of us, and I fall into this category, when I was doing my PhD, I was more interested in just putting the science out there. I did a little bit of application in my PhD, but we should do more of that. How does my PhD apply to that? I would suggest that in any publication you are preparing, try to add application or policy relevance of your findings to the outside world, because that helps you to show that your research is not just focused on academic for academic sake, for publishing sake, but you want it to be applied in the real world. So start thinking of how you can get your research towards the real world. Learn to write for those outside of the academia. That's one of the main challenges with science or PhD writing. Very difficult for others to understand. Learn to make your writings to be understandable to those outside of the academia. Then start closing down on relevant skills and knowledge deficiency. Most of the fields that I mentioned earlier on, most PhDs don't apply to them because they feel this is for business person. This is for somebody that has done project management. But you've already acquired some of these skills. What you need to do during your PhD is to think of, how do I build my skills? Tayo mentioned volunteering. She mentioned internship. I think that's very important. That's one of the ways to get the skills. Project management. Many PhDs don't realize that as a PhD, there is the PMI or PMP for project management will waive some courses for you because you have done a PhD, because they know you already have some skills in project management. So if I'm a PhD, I want to go and acquire that extra certificate, that certification. Commercial acumen, business skills. Many schools will have courses that you can take in business that you can add to your CV. Take advantage of those knowledge. I will also want to give this information. There is a recent master's degree, Quantic MBA. It's Quantic School of Technology. They are offering free MBAs to people with limited years of experience. So I will advise many PhDs to take advantage of that. It's online, so you can just get that and you'll have an MBA with your PhD. That gives you an edge over many people that want to apply. Acquire skills in regulatory issues, do courses in those areas, information management, and so on. Those will help you to build your CV and make it stronger for when you want to apply for a job. Then, important, network and keep networking. This is an information that came out from JobVite and New York Times. They did the research and they discovered that most positions are filled via referrals. 40% of positions, JobVite say 40%, New York Times say 50% of positions are filled via referrals. So, which means, and only 7% of people are able to get referrals, which means that most jobs are actually filled by networking. In fact, there are organizations that are giving their staff bonuses for being able to refer the right candidates, because organizations have found that people that are referred stay longer in a position. They are quicker to recruit and get on board. So organizations prefer to use referral because it's also save money in interviews and so on. So as a PhD, you want to start networking with the right set of people. And if you want to network, go to your academic conferences, go to conferences in your field, but please don't go to those alone. Go to conferences outside of your field, outside of the academia. Go to industry conferences. Go to meet up with entrepreneurs. Spend time with exhibitors. Network with those outside of your field. Prepare before you go for networking. Not just that you just go and give a card. Every PhD student should have a business card. Very, very important. Every PhD student should have a business card. Once you're able to network with people, you speak to them in conferences, follow up with them, send email to them. And when you are sending email to them, don't send email that gets me a job. Send email to say, I'm interested in the work you are doing. I want to learn more about your work. Can you please mentor me? By so doing, you're already building a relationship with the person begins to understand your skills. It becomes easy when there's a position for the person to think of you and tell you and refer you for that position. So start thinking of that, then create an online presence. Every PhD student should have a LinkedIn profile. Every PhD student should have a LinkedIn profile. I will not go, the next part of my slide is on LinkedIn, but I will not talk more about that. LinkedIn is very important, so every PhD should have a profile on LinkedIn. Fill in your LinkedIn profile, get all the information that is needed. You can look at the rest of my slide to get all the necessary information about how you should have your LinkedIn profile presented. But the last bit I'll just end with is, my last slide is some things to consider. Be realistic about your job prospect and don't aim too high or too low. Be aware that you may not be treated differently than colleagues who have a lower qualification. So don't go in with that mistake that I have a PhD and I should be the preferred candidate. It will not always be the case. Know the keyword and the buzzword for the sector you want to go into and use them in your application. Do not be paid. You might not be paid more because you have a PhD, but your PhD will be an advantage as you get into the position to get into higher level. Moving from academia is a transition, and while you may have a lot of freedom to organize your days, as in the industry, you might not have all the freedom. I remember towards the end of my PhD, I wasn't going to the office. I just sit down and just write my papers. In organizations, you cannot get that liberty. So you must free yourself from that liberty that you have from PhD. And you will probably work on other people's priorities. So you should know that. And lastly, you may miss the academia. For me, I'm not missing the academia. And why am I not missing the academia is because I'm still publishing. Because I work in the science policy interface, so I still work with people in the academia. I still have publication. In fact, most of my impactful publications were published after I left the academia. So I'm not missing the academia, but I know that I'm going to come back to the academia. I know that at the end, either for pro bono or for free, I'm going to come back to the academia because I like teaching. So I'll just end my presentation there. I'm happy to chat and discuss with us more.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very, very much indeed. That is very, very interesting. Quite comprehensive. You cover quite a lot of ground there, Sunny. So thank you so much for taking the time to prepare and for offering those valuable insights. And I mean, you've already said that you're happy to share your slides. I think, I speak, imagine for every participant here that they would love to have, those slides. So please do share them, and we will send across, distribute to participants. So these are very, very interesting conversation, and you both touch a lot of ground. And I know that, okay, we're of course watching our time, but we still have some time to explore this. So, and I'm not going to take all the time because I know that, participants out there on the floor who also want to ask a few questions or contribute a few things. I've seen a few names there already. So I would first begin then with Tayo. Let's get back to Tayo, and so we give Sunny a few minutes or some breather there. Okay, so Tayo, your presentation was very interesting. You touched a lot of things there, and I just want to pick up on a few of them. I mean, so the first thing you said was that, you'd always wanted to do a PhD, right? From the word go, but you've never been interested as such in the academia. So the first question is why a PhD? So before you moved, of course, into the post-PhD world of work, why did you think? I mean, you may know after the fact that the PhD skill was relevant too. So yeah. Why did you think that doing a PhD was going to be important for your career aspirations? Even more than having a master's and accumulating experience and so on. Can you? Yeah.
Yeah, excellent question. So, I really, first of all, we must not forget that to see a PhD for what it is an intellectually satisfying experience, at least you know, for the most part, that is what it's supposed to be. I really wanted to be an expert in my field. And I think, you know, going into a PhD, attaining the highest level, highest academic degree available in a certain field helps give you some credibility in, you know, in the industry. Even if it is not, you know, particularly if you're not going into academia, it helps to give you some kind of credibility. It distinguishes you as an expert in your field for the most part. And I think, you know, for me, that was what really my desire was. It was, you know, I always knew that, you know, being in a university, in a classroom was never my thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was just a desire to be an expert in my field.
Yeah. So I mean, so that's interesting, because I was just interested in exploring that. So this was your mindset before you undertook a PhD. Can I just ask, did you find this was borne out by your experience then, you know, post PhD?
Oh,
was it exactly what you saw? Was it the case that because you had a PhD, people looked up to you more as an expert than those people who did not have PhD?
Well, yes and no. So it all depends. So in public health, in global health, you don't really need a PhD to be an expert. So let's be clear about that. You know, the fact that I have a PhD does not necessarily mean I'm better paid than my colleagues who don't have a PhD. It is your experience, it's the skills that you have that really determine whether or not you know, you're considered an expert. But that being said, I have found that the way I think and the way I approach projects or programs that I work on is very different because of the background that I have, the research background that I have. If you take implementing a program, for example, or designing a program, the kind of hat that you wear, having a researcher hat, is very different from somebody who doesn't have a research background or those kind of you know, hardcore skills that you develop during completing a PhD program is not a walk in the park, and I'm sure everybody here knows that. I think for me, it has been an advantage in terms of the kind of things that I have been able to do. I have been able to do research type work and non-research type work. So it gives you more options, really. Even in the industry, as to the kind of things that you can do, the kind of skills that you have. I mean, in the course of my career, I have engaged in capacity building, for example. I have designed research courses for non-research people within the organizations where I've worked. So, you know, those kind of things, it's always an added advantage for you to have that advanced degree. You know, it's never a minus, it's always a plus. Yeah. I think.
Thank you so much for that. I'll come back to you again with a few other questions, but I just want to pick up then with Sunny, following on that. Your first job with the United Nations Environment Program was as a special assistant to the chief scientist. Of course, I think we have already touched the ground that, you know, there are a range of options, you know, career options, you know, for PhDs outside academia. But yours was specifically something for the chief scientist, which is quite, you know, unique in many ways. Did you think, you know, that role could possibly have been filled with somebody who had no PhD? And to what extent was your PhD, you know, relevant both in the recruitment process as well as in the kind of how you then, you know, got, you know, to the ground running, you know, when you took on the role, and the kind of things you were doing in that role? Can you hear me? Can you unmute yourself?
I'm not muted. Can you hear me?
It looks like we may have lost Sunny.
I'm here. Hello, can you hear me?
No, Sunny he's here. I'm able to hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead. We can hear you.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's a good question. The first answer is this: whether the position will be filled, can be filled if with someone that doesn't have a PhD. Yes, most UN position in terms of academic qualification, what is needed is a master's. Actually, there are very, very few United Nations positions that requires a PhD. Very, very few. And most of the time when you see, I've never seen anyone in my organization, even though my organization is even science oriented. I've seen a few positions in FAO and the World Bank where they said a PhD is an advantage, but it's not a criteria for being recruited for the position. So yes, my position could be filled with someone without a PhD. Did my PhD provide added advantage for me to get that position? Very, very true. PhD, yes, and because my position was a science-oriented position, it's a science policy position, which the recruiter, which is the chief scientist of UNEP then, needed someone that could do the job, that could do some level of research and so on. So my CV stood out to him. In fact, after I got in, we were having a chat with him. Well, during my son's naming ceremony, he was invited there. So, and the pastor was preaching and saying, "Oh, my son is going to be greater than me and everything." And the funny guy, my former boss, is American and he's outgoing, and he just stopped the pastor in between the preaching and said, "How can you say that this boy is going to be greater than his dad? 1,000 people applied for this position and he was the one that got the job. So how do you mean?" So that was when I realized that a lot of people actually applied for the position. I actually discovered that people, even within internal candidates, applied for the position. But I believe my PhD gave me one of the edge to be able to get the position in the long run. And then did my PhD help me to get the work going after getting the position? Definitely. And that's one of the things. I'm actually an example of the fact that your PhD transferable skills help you to be able to work well in organizations. So my PhD is on waste, chemicals and waste. So basically, I have minute experience on climate change. The first set of projects I worked on at UNEP was on climate change. And it is not just going to learn about climate change, it's about writing a report that will advise governments on how to tackle climate change. Without a PhD, I don't know, and the transferable skills of conducting research, analyzing data that I've acquired, there's no how I think I would have been able to do the job. And I keep having that experience. I've written reports on different topics, on food security, on chemicals, on climate change, on sustainable development goals, on even things that have to do with humanities. And it's only the fact that I have a PhD, the training that I've already acquired as a PhD student, that is helping me to be able to do those work. I learn new topics every day. My work deals with learning new topics every day, and the PhD is definitely a skill. And one other point I will make is this: most of these organizations are moving towards the point where they will start demanding PhDs. Already, some of the organizations are giving preference to PhDs when they apply. And some, I would say, like 15 years ago, you will never see any job that says PhD is an advantage. But now we are getting to the point that is, in fact, I was looking at a position at the UN office in Addis Ababa for the United Nations Regional Office for Africa. And I saw a position and they said they want a PhD, and I was surprised. So we are getting to that point even in Africa.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I lost connection for a few seconds there. So, but thank you. That is really very, very, helpful and insightful comments. Of course, I was aware also that, some of your work, involved coordinating with, a wide range of stakeholders, including those who are in academia.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, the fact that, you have done that before, sometimes you have to edit documents, the United Nations Environment Program report on Ogoni land, for example, I recall that. So I suppose also that the fact that you are in that position, is the strategic position to be in, that you can, coordinate and work with those in academia as well as those who are in industry, as well as other stakeholders as well. So yeah, so thanks for that. So the next question actually I want to pick up is something that is important that you both touched in your presentation, and that is the issue around being intentional and being strategic in skill development strategy. And I just want to ask you, that what strategy did you use to approach this? I don't know, maybe we could start again with Sunny. That when you were doing your PhD, were there training opportunities in your university then? And were you particularly strategic about it? Was there any particular way you went about it, or if it was spontaneous? What was it? What was the experience like for you? Were you only focusing on acquiring skills that were relevant to your PhD? And what were those kind of skills anyway, that you acquired, and how relevant were they for you, once you got into the world of work post outside academia? Sunny first, and then the same question to Tayo.
Yeah, a good question. I think for me, I will not say I was very strategic about it. Sometimes I try to be humble and not give so much credit to the fact that I'm working outside the academy, because if I don't get pushed, if I've not been pushed from my wife to apply for some position or stuff like that, maybe I would not have been there. But there are also some things that I did consciously, because fine, I was in engineering, so I was thinking of engineering. So I made sure that my skills in engineering, in critical thinking and so on, are well honed. And then when there are opportunities to learn, for example, I attended a business class at London School of Business, because they were doing a collaboration between, because you might know that UCL doesn't have a business school. I don't know if that has changed now. So they had this collaboration with London Business School for PhDs to acquire some knowledge in business. So I went for those courses to acquire those knowledge, profit and loss account and all those stuff, which were useful, at least to be able to put on your CV that you have that knowledge. Then I also took courses in teaching for higher education. So I have that fellow as a fellow of Teach for Higher Education. And you might not know, United Nations have a university, United Nations University, with campuses all over the world. And I was actually offered a job at the German campus at the time, and I know that that certificate was useful to get that, although I ended up rejecting the offer. So overall, I would say I wasn't very strategic about it, but I don't pass opportunities that come. So I remember there was a time that there was programming at UCL. I went for the course to just acquire that knowledge. And knowing what I know now, I know I would have done it differently. I would have been much, much, much strategic in acquiring every knowledge possible. Especially for people, if you are studying in places like Canada or US, where you have the opportunity of taking courses, unlike the UK, where your PhD is just dump you into the lab immediately. In US, you have opportunity of taking courses. I think you should harness those opportunities to acquire as much skills, knowledge that you need in the field. And I think one strategic thing you can do that Tayo mentioned is internship and volunteering. Those things cannot be overlooked in your CV if you have acquired those experiences.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. I was going to come specifically to to volunteering maybe we get to that straight away now. But Tayo, can you speak to the issue of skills, and strategy that you use or that you would have loved to use? I think two parts.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll just add to what Sunday said. So here in the United States, the PhD program is quite cost heavy. I think in the UK, you just go straight into, your research. It takes a shorter time. But here in the US, you spend the first couple of years doing courses for the most part. So I did a lot of courses, even those that were not even required for me. I did, well over 100 credit hours of courses, in the course of, the first couple of years of my program. So, and there's so many things that you can learn, skills you can acquire, knowledge that you can acquire as a result of doing those courses, whether or not they're required or not. So that's one aspect. And then while I was doing my my doctoral thesis, so I charted my own course for my doctoral thesis. I wanted to do my fieldwork in Africa. I wanted to work specifically in a certain specific area. I was fortunate or blessed, whichever one you want to pick, to had a fellowship, a research fellowship that exposed me to outside my academic institution, where I was able to work during my PhD program. And even during that, I took on, other non-doctoral thesis related work where I was able to acquire field experience as a result during the PhD program itself. So, one thing that I want to say that I want to highlight is that, don't think of your PhD as purely an academic program, as a time to just acquire, academic knowledge. Think of it as work experience, like Sunday alluded to during his excellent presentation. It is work experience, and because it is work, what do you do when there's something called on-the-job training, right? Whatever job it is that you have, you're learning on the job, consciously or unconsciously. So that's the same way you want to treat your PhD program, whether or not, regardless of which direction you want to take your career. Think of it as what am I learning outside of just acquiring the degree, right? And those kind of things will help you to determine what kind of skills, those skills are everywhere. You just may not realize that they are there, but you can acquire them through courses that you do, through intentionally positioning yourself, to gain some specific kinds of knowledge or experiences. For my own field, what was most important was having field experience, having that public health, international public health field experience, which was what I chose to focus on for my doctoral thesis. So yeah. I'll wrap up there.
Thank you for that. I know there are a few questions already on the chat, and more questions are welcome. I will start reading out some of them. And if you want to speak directly to the speakers, we'll get to that in about 5 minutes or so. I just want to take up at least one more. I want to just add one more question before we then open the floor for comment from participants. And that is on the subject of volunteering. So is there any experience you want to share about, how you volunteered, during your PhD, or where, one can get opportunities, to volunteer, I'm sure there will be a lot of people, including many who are not able to attend tonight, but will be watching this, recorded, version, on YouTube later on. So any thoughts on that, Tayo, and then back to Sunny, and then we just open the floor.
All right, thank you. Yes, that I shared a link in the chat box. That is a link to volunteer opportunities within the UN system. I'm sure Sunny is familiar with it as well. That is, always a good place to start. All the work experience that I had while on the field in Nigeria during my doctoral thesis, I did it for free. I wasn't, paid for it. So that was my own way of volunteering. I was, evaluating community nutrition projects, developing standard operating procedures for these programs, doing all kinds of things that are totally outside what my doctoral thesis was all about, and that was all volunteering. you know, it's not, you have to look at the big picture. It's not about, you know, necessarily getting paid, because a lot of these volunteer type works, they're quite intense, but you should be open to them, to do those things free of charge, you know, but you will learn a lot and you will gain a lot of experience from that.
Yeah, and I thought, you know, that strikes me as actually a creative and strategic way to go about it. Because when you are out on the field, you're doing, you know, collecting data for your PhD, and then you are full volunteering on the side.
Yeah,
I think that seems to be, you know, a creative way, an imaginative way to go about it. Because on the one hand, I mean, especially if you are funded, if you are on a funded PhD, you know, you are then, you know, paid to do, you know, I mean, your expenses are covered.
yeah, exactly.
To do those field work. And if then on the side, you know, you are doing some work using the same kind of skills, you know, for organizations, I think that is actually a very good way, you know, that one can go about it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah. Oh, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I was also going to say, so that is for if you're working internationally, but even within your, where you are right now in the UK, in the US, wherever it is that you are, you know, you can send an email, you know, whatever organization it is that you have interest in, you know, send an email, go online, find somebody's name, you know, send an email. The worst thing that they can say is no, right? But you would have made that move. And a lot of people, there are people that have, you know, that I know that have worked, you know, volunteer for Save the Children and all of that. Those things, you know, it happens all the time. And even in any industry, I'm sure there are opportunities where you can be proactive in seeking those volunteer opportunities. So let me just...
Yeah, thank you for that. Essentially saying, you know, don't wait for the opportunity to come to you. Go out and reach out and, you know, and seek out those opportunities, you know, and be proactive. I think that is the message I'm getting. You have to be proactive about it. I was in Geneva earlier in the year, and it struck me, you know, in a conference, you know, interacting with a number of people, of the number of people who are now in full-time employment, but almost 95% of them, I mean, those I spoke with, you know, said, you know, they started by volunteering, you know, for free, and especially if you have to go to Geneva as well, you know, that's a different kind of challenge also. I mean, some were sponsored in terms of their expenses, but they were not paid for the work by their government, you know, to volunteer for these organizations. And so that is also something quite striking. Sunny?
Yeah, I would just add a little bit to that, yeah, you have to be proactive in terms of volunteering. You have to reach out, and you can see volunteering as part of your networking. Volunteering gives you the opportunity to get a referral. So if you volunteer, the person you work with know you, they've seen you worked with them before, it becomes easy for them to refer you to a position either within the organization or outside the organization. And I think one other thing we want to do in terms of volunteering is, and I've said it before when I was talking about other big organizations, is look for the small organization. Your objective when you are trying to volunteer is to acquire work experience that you can put in your CV separate from your PhD itself. So, and those opportunities, you will get them. Many of these small organizations are looking for people that are willing to work with them. Yeah. And even if it's just 1 hour, 2 hours of your time that you are willing to give to them in a week, per day, I think that's going to be something you can really use to acquire the necessary experience, and not just experience, but also the necessary contacts that you need for the future. We must see it as something like paying forward. Well, that's the real definition of volunteering in the first place, but you must be proactive about it. And yes, send email if it's possible to work to the organization, and then look for the places where you can see people to talk to. In conferences, in meetings, look for opportunities. The good thing is now many conferences are now online because of the COVID. So you can actually attend several conferences online, and you will get contact of people that you can send emails to. Nobody, the averseness to email is reduced now because people know that that's the only way we are contacting each other now, because we are not seeing face to face. So people will look at emails more compared to how much we looked at it before. So I think those are opportunities that we must strike. And as I said, look for opportunities outside of your organization, outside of your field. People will appreciate to hear you. When you talk with people in your field, you are basically talking down on yourself, on what you know. When you talk to people outside of your field, you are passing knowledge to them. They will pass knowledge to you, you acquire knowledge, and there will be interest and opportunity to connect more.
Yeah.
Thank
you for that. Thank you for that. Again, please bear with me. I'm having some, connection issues here, so there's a bit of a time lag. But I did hear most of what Sunday was saying there, so thank you so much. So I think it's time to just give opportunity for those on the floor, for participants to contribute. I can see a hand up already, but I also saw there was a comment earlier on from some of the participants. That I will now ask to just quickly, don't do elaborate preambles, just quickly maybe ask directly. So Tommy and Amina, do you want to unmute yourself? And if you want to show your face as well, that would be great. And ask your question. You posted those questions on the chat, but they've disappeared from my screen because I was out for a few seconds. So do you want to unmute yourself? You want to go first, and then Debo? So let's go in that order. Tommy, Amina, and Debo.
Yeah, I think all I wanted to say was I totally agree with Dr. Omoni in terms of coming into to do a PhD for the sake, for me, as somebody that's been in practice for many, many years. My thought for coming to do a PhD was more around gaining more credibility. And so looking again outside of academia, but obviously I think I didn't even, I think fully understand that a lot of people come to do a PhD because they want to stay in academia. So I was just, my comment that I put there was that I was just saying thank you for that, because that sort of like speaks to me in terms of where I was thinking. Thank you.
Where you are at, yeah. Thanks for that, Amina. And Tommy, are you there? Okay, I think while we wait for Tommy, if she's still there, Debo, if you can unmute yourself and show your face, if you can, yes. So Debo is also one of our colleagues from the Montfort University, but he's also worked in the industry for 10 years before joining academia. So it's a kind of a very interesting story there. So yeah, please, your comment and contribution there, and then we have Dr. Fatokun as well. Yeah, go ahead, Debo.
Thank you very much, Yo, and big thanks to the speaker.
Can you unmute yourself?
Oh.
You're audible, Debo.
We can hear you.
Is it my connection or can we hear Debo?
Okay, thank you. So I only have a question, and digital technology and fourth industrial revolution is changing the world right now. And it's not only changing the world, it's changing jobs and employment landscape. So my question is, what does this mean for PhDs that are looking for jobs in the industry?
Thank you for that. That's very, I was actually going to raise it in the panel discussion itself, so thank you for that. So that we are talking about digital transformation. So this is actually the beginning of it. We are just at the initial phase. It's changing things, massively in the world of work. And we've been talking about transition to knowledge economy. So can you please speak to that? What was the relevance of this to the conversation around, PhDs?
I couldn't. Yeah, thank you, David, for that question. I couldn't agree with you more. Not only has the fourth industrial revolution changed the world, even COVID has changed the world. the workplace as we know it has changed so much. For example, in my line of work, we typically do a lot of travel, offering technical assistance, for programs that we're implementing and all of that. But since COVID, there has been no travel, and the work must continue. So you really need to begin to think out of the box of how you can do remote technical assistance, for example. So, and also even the fact that you're not necessarily, I mean, I've not been in my physical office since March. Everybody has been working from home for months. The world as we know it has changed. So the kind of skills and the way you will translate those skills into the marketplace. Also, you really need to think out of the box and be more cutting edge about how you market yourself. The technical skills, for example, that you need to have, those are now more front and center than they were before. Even if you're going to have a career in academia, for example, you must have cutting edge technical skills to be able to navigate the space that we have now. So yeah, in addition to all those skills that we have talked about before, you also need to be mindful of the fact that, technical skills, what's the word? Technological, you need to be constantly innovating and recreating yourself so that you don't become obsolete. So I mean, for example, all our children, at least my children, are doing remote learning. They're learning from home. They have their online, platforms and everything. My 7-year-old knows how to use the computer the way, all the things she's doing now, I didn't know how to do those things until I started working at Accenture, for example, when I was a full-grown adult. So those are the kind of things we're saying. Imagine you have to constantly be reinventing yourself to remain relevant. And the final thing that I would say is, even in terms of how you package your resume, you must customize your CV in a way that translates the skills that you have acquired during the PhD program to speak specifically to that particular position that you're applying for in the language that the recruiter understands. And it will do you well to also go over and beyond to demonstrate that you have what it takes. You have those skills that you can translate into that position that you're applying for. And Sunny alluded to that also, that you having your long list of academic publications on your CV, that's irrelevant. Nobody cares about that at the time when your CV is being reviewed, for that to get your foot in the door. So yeah, I totally agree with you that you really need to communicate your skills in a way that speaks to the current landscape of the world that we live in right now.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Thank you, Sunny. Do you have anything to speak to that?
Yeah, if I may add a bit to that, I agree with Tayo's response. But if I want to be bold, I will actually say that as a PhD, you're actually at advantage. Because most of the knowledge you're acquiring is not what machine will do. I think there are a few, but most of the knowledge you're acquiring, let's assume you are doing something in social science or humanities and so on, you can actually put those machines to use. You can put artificial intelligence to use in your work, in engineering and so on. You can put those into use. So what you need to do, as Tayo alluded to, is to acquire necessary skills in those fields, and then put your knowledge at the cutting edge. Ask yourself, how does this apply to your field? How does this industrial revolution, fourth industrial revolution, apply to your field? And I would say, if I'm at the tail end of my PhD, what I would do is to go and acquire all the knowledge and see how it applies to my field. If I'm at the beginning of my PhD, I want to design my PhD topic to actually address those. So with that, you're actually on top of those things. You are on top of it. You are not playing catch up. So, and it's true, but the mistake we could make is to just ignore it and think we'll be fine. Even if you feel that your field is not going to be impacted, the mistake you can make is to think I'll be fine. I don't need to acquire skills in that. I wrote a publication in November on blockchain, and we were looking at how blockchain can be applied to environmental issues. And many of the people that I was dealing with that needed those information, they kept wondering, what is blockchain? In fact, in the long run, we had to agree that forget about definition of blockchain, just know what you can use it for. But it's applicable. We were looking at how it can be used for plastics, how it can be used for climate change, and these are not just theoretical things, these are things that are already happening. Blockchain is being used to capture plastic and create a circular economy. So the question is, how does this industrial revolution apply to my field? In fact, as a PhD candidate, you have more opportunity, because for people that are already out, it's a struggle. For me, I'm very opportune because my work needs me to be on the cutting edge of my field, of the latest science in my field. So I think of how I can apply it. But for many other people, that's not the case. But for a PhD candidate, you actually have the opportunity to spend time and acquire the knowledge and start thinking in terms of foresight. What's the scanning the horizon for this issue? How does it apply to my field? How do you think it's going to affect behavioral change? How do you think it's going to affect how we take care of the environment, or how we relate with each other and so on, and see how you can apply it? I'm very sure that a time is going to come when this fourth industrial revolution become well established, that we'll start looking for humans that can actually help us analyze the impact of this. And that's where you get the advantage, if you're on top of it now.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much. We cannot actually exhaust that particular topic. It's interestingly something that is a subject of current research, that I'm doing with colleagues like Debo. And I think it's important. And I think I cannot emphasize that enough, what Sunny has just said there, Dr. Leonard, that as PhD student, you are actually in an advantageous position because you are still in the middle of your PhD. So you can be intentional and strategic about the way you actually build, Industry 4.0, as it is called, or digital transformation, into what you're doing, so that you're killing, many birds with one stone. You are not reinventing things. It's still along your PhD. Digital transformation is all encompassing, as you've seen already, Tayo has spoken to it, Sunday has spoken to it. Automation is everywhere, everything is being automated. And I think in the future, those who will be, in the advantageous position in the future in this industrial revolution that is unfolding are those who have the skills to work with machines, so to speak. So, and it's not the things around, augmentation, about, augmented reality, how people, so, and those will be the skills, those who have skills in big data, those who can actually understand, who can work at the pace, that robots and automated systems are working. And I think that is really important. And, there needs to be a strategic, focus there to tailor both your PhD and the skills that you're acquiring around these Industry 4.0 skills, big data analytics, and things like that, programming. And there are a lot of opportunities out there, including outside your, your particular institutions. There are a lot of platforms, out there where you can take short courses, fairly cheap courses as well, programming, data camp, Udemy, Coderia, or did I get that correct? And various other platforms. And I think, this is something that I will encourage, as a strategic goal for every PhD. At least make sure you have a section in your skill portfolio that is Industry 4.0. So thank you once again for those comments. That's very useful. Dr. Fatoko, can you please unmute yourself, and you may want to show your face as well and ask your question.
Thank you very
much. Dr. Fatoko is one of our mentors in the African Scholars Program. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yes.
So I'm currently an academic within Liverpool John Hopkins University, First of all, thanks indeed to Dr. Omoni and Dr. Leonard. I must say those are very excellent presentations. Well done indeed. So I would like to please present a scenario and ask you to speak to that. So let's say somebody felt right from the beginning that they were well caught out of the academia, and they went into the first postdoc and the second postdoc. So they've spent, say, 4 to 5 years postdocing. They're beginning to now realize that there is a little prospect of transitioning to the academia, maybe as an assistant professor, as people say in the US, or as a lecturer in the UK. And they are now beginning to think of making a move from academia to the great world. Now, within the medical research context, people say if you really want to go into, say, the pharmaceutical industry, once you finish your PhD, don't say you are postdocing, go straight to that place. And I don't know whether you have experiences of colleagues that you are working with who used to be in that position within academia, postdoc for several years before transitioning. And if you have had such people, what do you think were their peculiar challenges in terms of reconstructing their mindset away from academic mindset, so to say, to the corporate mindset? Because that's usually the challenge or the accusation. So what will you counsel the person to do that it will be different to the way you will have counseled somebody who finished their PhD and went straight away into the corporate world? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fatoku. I don't know who want to go first. Yeah, Sunny, and then yeah.
Well, let me give it a go. It's a scenario that I've not met someone that's passed through such scenario, but I think, and I agree that the longer you stay away from the industry and continue postdocing, the more difficult it is for you to switch and move out of the academia to the industry. But I think the first thing is the person yourself, is for you to really make up your mind. You need that switch that tells you, now I need to start doing things differently. And the danger in academia is that the longer you stay, the more you approach things with a researchy mind, if you know what I mean. And I have to confess that I still struggle with that. I think generally, even before going into academia, I had that researchy mind. So I've worked with a boss before that feels, when she asks me to do something, she tells me, just give me some information. It doesn't have to be details, because she clearly noticed that I'm going to give her the core, accurate information and detail of it, and she felt, no, I just need the surface of it and this thing, and I have experienced that. So when you think of someone and think of the fact that I've been outside of the academia now for 11 years, and I'm still approaching things that way. So when you think of someone that's been postdocing, it becomes more difficult. So that important switch needs to come in. I think the rest, everything we have said in terms of what you need to do for someone that's still doing his or her PhD, applies to someone that is that spent time doing postdoc. Doing your postdoc is, you are not sitting down doing irrelevant things. You are actually acquiring more detailed knowledge that is needed in the industry. In fact, you are getting more and more stronger in those skills, those transferable skills that we have talked about. So it is, I believe that slide that I have, it is in your head. I think it applies more to even people that have spent so much time in postdoc. There is a need for a mind change, a resetting, that now I want to go out. What do I need to do? What am I lacking? All we need to do for anyone, either you are still a PhD or you are already doing a postdoc for a long time, is to ask yourself, which industry do I want to go to? What are the skills that are required in those industry? What skills do I have? What gaps do I need to fill? And then who should I be networking with? And I think that aspect of networking is very, very important for people that have spent long for postdoc, because if you have spent long for postdoc, you are no longer able to apply for fresh graduate schemes. PhDs apply for fresh graduate schemes in the US, in Canada, in the UK. Fresh graduate job scheme, PhDs can still apply for it, fresh PhD or 1 year after PhD. But as a postdoc, the only thing you can be thinking of is early career research applications. So you need to start asking yourself that what are the things I need to build, and then networking will become very, very important for somebody that's spent so much time postdocing, because you now need to be speaking to people outside of those you are used to speaking to. As a postdoc, you are busy talking with people in your field. In fact, not just your field, just the narrow part of your field. You need to open up your mind. So I think it starts with the mind, getting ready for the change, and then assessing yourself. And the thing is, don't play down on the skills you have acquired during your postdoc period, and then look at the gaps that needs to be filled, acquire those gaps. Just as Dr. Shion said, there are many courses that you can get online, and I seriously recommend the Quantic MBA that I talked about. In fact, I applied to it, but they want me to do the executive one because of my long years of experience, but it is free of charge. And when you are talking about Industrial 4.0 in the academy, I am predicting that Quantic MBA is the Industrial 4.0 of MBA, because I believe they are going to take over MBA in the future. And because I've gone through some of their courses, as part of the criteria to be able to apply, you have to do some of the courses, and I saw the things they are teaching, the style of teaching and so on, interactive online courses. So I think it's something that we should consider to also build all the skills that we need.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I'm also recommending Quantic MBA is that it's an opportunity to network, because that's one of their objectives. People from Google, MIT, different organizations are applying there, and you have the opportunity to network with them globally. Globally. So I think it's something to consider.
Yeah, thank you very much for that response and for that excellent question, Dr. Fatokun. Before I ask Tayo to speak to that, I just want to add something to that, because that is also been on my mind. That actually, as we talk about Industry 4.0, I mean, so things are changing. So Industry 4.0 is changing the economy, is changing the world of work, is changing even the social psychology of work and the way we interact. All of that is changing. And I wonder also whether we actually need to also be at the forefront of this rethinking process, about actually rethinking employment itself, about the nature of employment. That are we going to have a future that is not so distant, where we are no longer going to be talking in terms of these very neat categories, either in terms of disciplinary, categories, or in terms of, expertise and so on, or in terms of, somebody working in the academia. I think what we are seeing, what is emerging, is a kind of a blurring of boundaries here. And in the UK already, as Dr. Fatokun and other colleagues here will specify, there are already serious conversations around the fact that, universities should not just be about, producing knowledge. It's not just going to be about teaching. They should fully embrace the third mission of economic and social value creation. So there are talks around, maybe what I would call University 4.0. That's an idea there for research about the entrepreneurial university. That is not just out there teaching students and disseminating knowledge, but also exchanging knowledge. So in the UK now, for example, you have the knowledge exchange framework, which was just very recently launched by the government. In fact, it's actually still in the pilot stage. We are actually saying we are not just assessing, academics now in terms of, the quality of their teaching or the quality of their research, but also the quality of the knowledge exchange activities. Are you actually working with industries? What value is your research activity giving to industry? Or actually, are you collaborating? What information are you getting from industry as well, to help the wider economy? So I just think it's important to throw that out there so that we can all begin to actually think ahead that, jobs of the future, either in the academia or anywhere else, is no longer going to be in these neat boundaries, where, we say, okay, I'm an academic, I'm not this, and I'm not that. And in that sense, there could be room for dual kind of career, you know, dual vocation, if I see, and we're already seeing intimations of that. You know, I'm sure that Dr. Leonard will testify to that with the people you work with. Some of the people that are in academia that are actually the innovative and people that are the front line, they also work with organizations like yours because they have a lot to offer. And it doesn't mean that they are not professors, they are still professors, they are still associate professors, but they are active, you know, with UN, you know, with Save the Children and and these organizations alongside. So maybe the conversation is also not so much about, you know, having done postdoc for many years or been in the academia for many years, that you are leaving that for something else. But actually you could do that alongside, you know, something else. But it's only those who are at that forefront, who have, you know, reinvented themselves, to use, you know, Tayo's words earlier on, who have, you know, skilled themselves in Industry 4.0 compliant, that will be able to take advantage of such opportunities. So I want to throw that long comment in and see whether, you know, Tayo has anything to add to that, really, and then we can take one last question before we close the session today.
No, I mean, not really. Very quickly, just two things I want to add to Dr. Sunny's response is for this scenario that Dr. Fatokun presented, is this person, you need to know your why, WHY. Be clear what you really want to do. Where does your passion lie? The truth of the matter is that some people are born to be academics, you know. That is the environment where they thrive. That is where they're going to achieve their highest potential in life. And there's nothing wrong with that. So if the person really needs to be clear as to, do I really want to go into the industry? Because really, industry is not for everybody, the same way academia is not for everybody. You have to be clear as to where does your passion lie? What do you really want to do? Be clear about that. And then the second thing I would say is it's wise to have a mentor, you know, somebody to hold your hand, somebody to guide you, somebody to, you know, help you navigate your career choices and all of that, and, you know, determine the best line of action for this person that's been doing postdoc upon postdoc.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Dr. Fatokun, were you going to say something?
No, I just wanted to thank the two speakers. Excellent.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Is there any one final question? I'm aware that we are 10 minutes, you know, to our, you know, official time, but we don't have to reach exactly up to that point. Tracy, are there any questions that we've not covered? Because some people have been posting questions online. So it's not just those who are in this room, you know, there are a lot of viewers also online, and there have been a few questions there. Are there any one or two highlights for the question?
Yes, so we have Tommy's question, which they had earlier on posted within the group chat. It's fairly, it's one I guess we can try and tackle within the few minutes that we have left, and then one from one of our Facebook viewers. I'll try and tie them in together so that we see if our panelists can kill two birds with one stone. So the question being that how important is teaching for developing a career outside of academia? So I guess from a perspective of both your experiences from transitioning from the academia and onto the international jobs to the UNEP and to Save the Children, as well as given that you both work at such well-known international organizations, that you often have that byline, not necessarily mandatory, but they often require an international language. How important is that as well? So how important is a foreign language as well when you're trying to get jobs that are often in either, you know, it could be in Geneva, or it could be that you're looking for a job as well that's also in The Hague. So how important, that is the two questions we would like for you to answer.
Okay. So thank you. Over to you, panelists. Is Tayo going first or Sunny?
Yeah, I can go first real quick. So for me, the only teaching experience that I have was as a TA during my master's and during my PhD. So not a whole lot. I didn't do a postdoc, and I didn't have any teaching position as such outside of the TA position. So, but let's think about it. When you have a teaching job, or, you know, whether you're doing teaching full-time or as a TA, what are the kind of skills that a teacher, you know, that are transferable, because at the end of the day, it's about transferring those skills to outside of academia. You know, as a teacher, you have communication skills, very important. You have organizational skills, very important. You have people management skills, very important. Mentoring skills, very important. So really, there is nothing that you have done within academia that you cannot translate outside of academia. You just need to be, you need to articulate clearly what those skills, because in the industry, what is important are what you can bring to the table. What are the skills that you have acquired in another environment that you can translate into this non-academic environment? To the second question about second languages, very important, very, very important. In fact, during my undergraduate, during one of those ASU strikes that we had in Nigeria at the time, I enrolled in Alliance Française to learn how to speak French, just because of, you know, my future career plans that, you know, I wanted to be able to speak another language apart from English, you know, but unfortunately, French just wasn't one of my strong points. So yeah, I only speak English, and yeah, being able to speak a second language is very, very important for those kind of international jobs. There are some jobs that you will see that is a requirement for you to be able to speak either French or Portuguese or Spanish or something. So yeah, if you have a flair for learning new languages, please go for it. It's always an advantage. You know, if you can acquire that skill as an adult, I would encourage you to do that. Very important to have for some positions in the UN and international NGOs. So.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tayo, for that, Sunday.
Yeah, just a little bit of addition to that. Yeah, I think it's easy for you to look down on your teaching skills or your teaching experience as not directly relevant. There are a few jobs that actually deal with training. In fact, most UN jobs, maybe the part of the package will be that you are doing capacity building or training. So if, for example, the job has capacity building elements in it, I'm just going to say that as a teacher, I'm building capacity. So it's a relevant skill. Now, it might be difficult for you to just sell direct teaching because you're not looking for a lecturing job or you're not looking for a teaching job. So, but as Tayo said, the skills you've acquired from the skills you use in teaching are very relevant to any international job, your communication skills and so on. So you are going to deal with people. In my field, I talk to policymakers. I have to be able to explain things to them in a way that they can understand. So you want to highlight that. So for example, in my CV to the UN, which is basically the CV I use now, my first work experience is teaching assistant or graduate assistant during my NYSC at the University of Maiduguri. The second one is teaching and research assistant at UCL. And that's 4 years work experience in my CV. And so just think of throwing it on the side and say, listen, so I was doing research as a PhD student. So that's research. I taught a few courses at UCL. So that's teaching. So I added together. I created the title for myself, teaching and research assistant. And my PhD supervisor knows that. So if they send any request for reference, he's going to confirm it. So you don't want to throw that away. In terms of language, yeah, I agree that it's very important, but I'm a little bit biased about it because I can't speak any language, and there is no hope of me ever being able to speak any other language.
You speak 2 languages?
No, I speak Yoruba, yes. I speak Yoruba. In fact, my mother tongue I can't speak. So, but yeah, it's important. It's important, and there are some positions you won't get without that second language. But the thing is this: in the UN and in all the UN system and international organization, for a position that specifically require being able to speak the other language, it will be noted in the job description. So if they say it's an advantage, then you still go ahead and apply.
Yeah.
If they say it's compulsory, just don't apply because you're just wasting your time. for the position, for that kind of position. Like when I first joined the UN, it would be an advantage if I can speak other language. But I've not, apart from the fact that okay, when I travel to Geneva or I travel to other countries, I have to struggle with the language. It has not been any issue in carrying out my job. So yes, if you have the opportunity, for why I said I can never speak in other languages, because I've had opportunities. When I moved to our France, Paris office, my organization paid for me to do training. And when I went to the class once, twice, I went back and I told myself, that money is gone because I know how I'm going to be able to speak the language. So some people don't have the flair, but I don't. And why I'm saying it this way is that I don't want us to be discouraged.
Yeah.
For jobs that specifically need that language experience, language knowledge, it will be stated there. If it doesn't state that, apply for it in the UN system.
Yeah, thank you so much, both Dr. Omoni and Dr. Leonard, for your responses. Very good advice as well, because I'm sure in the next year or so, I will personally be doing those job applications whereby I will come across certain stipulations that say French or Spanish is a mandatory or advantageous language to possess. Yeah. Thank you. Over to you, Sean.
So thank you, and thanks, Tracy. And we are now coming to the end of a very exciting session. Again, very mindful of time, but I cannot thank our distinguished panelists enough, for the very valuable, helpful insight that you have offered in both of your presentations this evening. And thank you, Leo, Sunday, for offering, to share the slides. That's very helpful. For the link that Tayo posted earlier, Tracy, please take note of that so that we can put this on our website, as a kind of maybe a resource, linked to this webinar. But thank you so very much. That is really brilliant. And we're going to be, of course, this is going to go on our YouTube channel as well. The previous session we've had more people actually, or considerable number of people, going on to watch the session, because they couldn't make the live session. So thank you so much. And thank you to the people, the crew in the back end, of course, Tracy and Amina, and Olakweju, and help me here, Tracy?
Andy.
And Andy, yes,
Yeah.
and Andy, of course. You are not forgotten, by no means forgotten, Andy. So thank you, guys, and thank you all very much, other participants there. Transition Adepoju from New Zealand, our colleague Regina Frank, Yomi Benson, and Tommy, and of course Debo Wale as well. And of course our colleague also Natasha Mwila, who is our colleague from DMU. So thank you so much for a very interesting conversation.
And Regina Frank is here as well.
Yes, I did mention Regina. Yeah, Regina Frank.
Yeah, thank you everyone for a super informative, exciting, and indeed fun session. Very, very inspiring, and I think so inspiring for PhD students, for early career researchers, and even old hats like me. It's lovely to hear so much encouraging knowledge sharing and tips in a time which can be at times, depressing for those who are furloughed or lose their jobs or lose family members. So there's so much, difficulty around us. So to hear, to be in a space with a network where people are supportive of each other and give really valuable advice, it's just absolute a great blessing. So thank you again, to all those who have organized and the speakers as well. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Regina. And so we'll be getting in touch with you again for our next webinar, which may not now run on a monthly basis, but trust us, we will carry on these sessions and we will let you know. We have some exciting topics to explore in the months ahead. So thank you once again. If you want to unmute yourself for 30 seconds to say bye, that's good. But thank you very much. And
thank you so much.